17 acres on a tree farm before it was brought under control Saturday evening. No homes were threatened or damaged. Your next news, 9 o'clock, news on demand, WRVA.com. I'm Gary Hess, News Radio WRVA, the voice of Virginia. Oh, I can almost guarantee you the Spirit Airlines, Jet Airliners, they take anywhere. They have ceased operation. They folded. They are no more. Why? I'm going to talk about that this morning on Richmond's Morning News. Do me a favor. I just want to get a little roll for you. How many of you have ever flown Spirit Airlines? How many of you are Spirit Airlines? I think they're 2%. 2% of the total passenger air traffic in the United States of America, but it's an impact when you have a national carrier that folds the way they did. If you've ever ridden Spirit Airlines, I'd love to hear from you this morning, 833-804-1140, 833-804-1140. Super Dave, have you ever taken Spirit?
I never did.
I haven't either. I took Frontier Airlines once, and it was awful.
I stick to Southwest Airlines and sometimes American.
Yeah. Now, here's, I think, where we're missing the boat on all this. And again, I'm looking for people, if you've flown Spirit Airlines, 833-804-1140, 833-804-1140. Now, a lot of these budget airlines will fly into places that normally people don't fly to. They'll fly to smaller airports. They'll fly to regional airports. They'll fly to airports that a lot of the big carriers maybe have one flight into at all. So I think they said Atlantic City was one where the only airline that flew to Atlantic City was Spirit. You have airlines like Spirit that will have multiple stops in Richmond, Orlando, because people are looking for that budget ticket price. I think I took Frontier once. And it was, I was living in Florida. There's Tampa and St. Pete. Tampa International Airport, a huge airport. St. Pete Airport, small, tiny little airport. But they flew out of St. Petersburg. I lived in St. Pete. So I said, I'll take this airline. Never again. I had to pay extra to get a seat. I had to pay extra for my bags. I had to pay extra for everything. So what was a really cheap ticket? Like, oh, great, I could fly here, and it's really dirt cheap. And then when I got to the airport, there's another $120 of fees on top of that, so it turned out not to be a cheap ticket. And I think that's where we've gotten in trouble with some of the airlines. Now, the airline industry is fragile. I mean, really fragile. How many times do we have to keep bailing out these airlines? They have a lot of costs. They have the aviation fuels going through the roof, never getting any cheaper. The cost of labor, the unions that you constantly see. How many times have you flown to see the flight attendants or the pilots or the baggage handlers threatening to go out on strike? When they threaten to go on strike, that means the cost of labor is going to continue to grow. The cost of maintenance continues to grow. The cost of these airplanes continue to grow. But what's not growing as much is the margins they make, because we keep treating flying like it's a life hack. Oh, you go to this airport, you put in this code, you can get this round trip ticket across the country for $13. Everybody wants to find that value life hack that they can show everybody else, look how cheap my airline ticket is. So we all chase that cheapest ticket we possibly can, and then we act surprised when airlines like Spirit go under. It's not complicated. Spirit Airlines is built on a model exactly what we roared. The lowest prices, no frills, and charge for everything else. And then when people get on there, they're like, I hate this airline. I don't want to fly it anymore. Dave, do you know why they serve peanuts on airlines?
Probably because they're cheap.
But where did that come from?
I don't know.
Southwest Airlines. Southwest Airlines started handing out peanuts on their airplanes because they said our ticket prices are peanuts. But Southwest Airlines used to have this rule where they weren't a national carrier, because they would have to do regional jumps. So maybe you start in San Diego, then you'd have to go to Dallas and then up to Denver. They didn't have the straight connections the way they do now. And they started just these little hubs, cheaper than all the rest, no frills. The airline, the flight attendants wore polo shirts instead of full uniform. They were the opposite of United and Skyway and all the rest of them, and there was just very low cost, cheap peanuts tickets, and America jumped to it. And they still jump to it. But even Southwest Airlines now charges for seat assignments, and now they charge for bags, which is something they never did. It was one of the reasons I love flying Southwest Airlines. They only have one plane that they fly, and that way, if something breaks, they have all the parts right there because they only do one type of airplane. So it makes maintenance a lot easier. But we keep chasing these cheap tickets, and everybody wants to go to a website and find the best value you can, and we get what we pay for. And then if you add on the policies of government, and we keep regulating, and then you saw Spirit Airlines trying their very, very best to stay afloat by merging with JetBlue. Elizabeth Warren comes out against it, Pete Buttigieg comes out against it, Merrick Garland blocks it in the DOJ, and you look at what happened to Spirit Airlines. And then it puts a shock to everybody else, because here's what's going to happen. Spirit Airline goes under. So what happens? Those people that were getting those ultra, uber cheap tickets are still going to want to fly somewhere. So instead of strengthening the system by saving Spirit Airlines, again, they claim that, well, now we're going to have less competition. If Spirit goes away and they merge with JetBlue, well, they'll have less competition, less airlines. That means the ticket prices will go up, and the consumer is going to take one on the chin. Well, that's exactly what happened because Spirit wasn't able to stay afloat. So now here's what's going to go on. So instead of strengthening the system, you just protect a broken model right up until it collapses. So you wouldn't let them merge. You let them wither on the vine, and now what happens a few years later? Those people that had flown Spirit Airlines still need to fly. They still need to get places. So instead of going for that uber cheap ticket on Spirit Airlines, they're going to have to pay a little bit more, but now they're also going to be in the bigger pool for American, United, Southwest, and all the rest of those airlines. Because we keep seeing these airlines diminish because they're chasing cheap tickets. Here's what happens. Eventually, this model's broken. We say we want competition, but we reward the kind of competition that can't survive by chasing these cheap tickets. So let me ask you this. If you get a cheap ticket to one of these, are you surprised when it's like riding a Greyhound bus? When it's like riding on a stagecoach, when it's not comfortable, there's no frills, there's no service, you don't get soda, you don't get anything. And then you wonder, well, wait a minute, why is this no frills? Because you didn't pay for service and all the amenities, and you just want to get your butt here and there. And, oh, by the way, bringing your bags is not something that's built into that ticket price. You've got to pay more. We demand better service from everybody, but we still want to pay as cheap as we can. That's like going to a restaurant and saying, I want a filet mignon and lobster, but I only want to spend $4. You're not getting filet mignon, you're not getting lobster, you're probably getting lobster, which is fake lobster, and you're probably getting a piece of gristle or maybe hamburger, and they try to pass it off as steak. So if we want everything to be built on the cheapest, don't be surprised when these things break down. And when you keep looking for the cheapest price, they can't stay afloat, and you have a major issue when it comes to airline and air travel in America. We keep asking for cheap flights, and then we act offended when we find out that these cheap flights aren't that cheap because it does cost you extra to take your bags. And then when we don't want to fly those airlines and their margins are so soft, everybody freaks out when they go under. We're setting ourselves up for failure over here. And when you fly, you heard Sean Duffy say, hey, you know what? Maybe it's a good idea you don't wear your pajamas. And you act like it's something important to do, like flying, maybe giving it a little bit more respect. But we don't really seem to do that, do we? We keep asking for us to wear pajamas and treat these like buses, and then get confused when none of this works and all of it breaks down. So let me ask you a question. Do you do what I do? I look for the cheapest flight. Of course I want to save money. I'll look at Expedia, Travelocity, then I'll go to the website of the airline, and I'll book that flight. More than anything else, I kind of use that to get a gauge of what the bare minimum of the ticket will be, and then I end up paying a little bit extra because I'll go buy it directly for Southwest United, all the rest of it. Because if you use those third-party Travelocities and the rest, I've learned that, yeah, you can get a cheap ticket, but if something happens to your flight and it gets canceled, then you've got to deal with Travelocity, not anybody at the airport. I've been stuck overnight because I couldn't get a hold of anybody. I want to know what you guys think. If you keep buying the cheapest ticket, are you surprised when the whole thing falls apart? Because again, you're asking for steak and lobster, you're asking for something really nice, but you're not willing to pay for it. 833-804-1140. 833-804-1140. Bottom line is the regulation and the cheap tickets we're going to keep seeing our airlines continue to diminish in value, and we're probably going to see more of them going. Think of all the airlines we've lost over the years. Eastern, we've lost America West. There's a whole bunch of airlines that have gone under, and you wonder why. All right, number a few tries. 833-804-1140. 833-804-1140 is the number for you to join. 833-804-1140. Let me ask you this. How many of you get annoyed with text messages from your credit card company? Your payment is due in 3 days. Your payment is due tomorrow. Your payment was due 10 minutes ago. It's great to get a credit card, but is it a pain in the butt? When those credit card bills start getting higher and they start hounding you, your payment is due now. I just want to get rid of all my credit cards. I'm tired of them. There's much people feel the same way. So what do? Homeowner, I got an idea for you. Right now, Loan Pronto has something called Rapid Equity Loan that lets you tap into the equity of your home to pay off credit card bills and even car loans. And finally, you might even be able to rebuild that back deck that you've been talking about for years. One client got $100,000 approved. They cut their monthly expenses by over $1,500. And it makes a big difference.